Well, for fulfilling all your fantasies. Well, maybe not all of them, but one of them.
Welcome to Couch Surfing, the show where golden guests look back at their big roles, their little roles, and everything in between. I'm here with Tony Goldwyn. Tony, how you doing?
Hi, Lola.
You ready to surf?
Yeah, I'm psyched to surf.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Read it.
Oh, no. Wow.
That's not the reaction I was hoping for.
So it's like the first bad guy I ever played, I think.
The original bad guy role. Your first, but certainly not your last.
Certainly not my last.
And what do you remember most about?
I remember there was this group of guys. Well, here's something really. Andy Griffith, who was wonderful, right?
Legend.
A legend. But Matlock basically, like these shows, every episode was exactly the same.
Right.
He did the same thing. So there's some crime or something, but then he'd be on. So he couldn't remember the names because he basically played the same scene every day in the courtroom. So they had cue cards all around the room. And so he would be like, Mr. Smith, I blah, 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 because he could never, because it was just basically interchangeable, these, kind of courtroom shows.
Did Andy give you any tips about the business or the craft? Did he pull you aside and say, this
No.
is how you make it in this biz, young
No.
buck? No. He could barely remember your name.
Yeah, no, he was lovely. He was
was
very, you know what he did? He put you at your ease.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you know what that one
We
is.
know what this is.
Look at that sweat on the brow. Look at that, again, 80s hair. It's kind of a good story how I got this part.
Tell me.
My wife, who is a great production designer, was the designer on Ghost. And she got this movie, and she kept coming home and saying, they haven't cast that part yet. There's this great role of the villain. And in those days, if you worked in television, you were almost forbidden. You could not break into movies. I was like, they're never going to hire me. And she was on my ass about it. So I kept calling my agent, and I couldn't get an audition. They were like, yeah, right. So, but I just kept pestering them, and the assistant in the agent's office was like, I'm going to get you in on that.
Really?
And so he gets me an appointment, and I go on tape for this thing. Went and I left and thought, I felt like I did a pretty good job with that. 2 or 3 months later, I get this call from my agent, who actually I rarely spoke to because he didn't return my calls very often in those days. Said, remember that movie Ghost? They have not been able to cast the part, and they ended up stumbling on your tape, and they want to fly you to Los Angeles for a screen test. And I ended up getting the job.
All right, up next.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Woodstock. This is
Yes.
A Walk on the Moon, my first film I directed. We didn't have the money to do anything super fancy. But I thought, if you were at Woodstock, you didn't have the experience of having a big, overview,
Right.
So I thought, it would be a very subjective experience. So if we are just surrounded by people and we spend the money to get a couple of special effects shots to convince the audience that we're actually there, we can economically do this. So we literally had 250 extras. That's it.
That's it?
And we had, I think, 3 shots in there. The one you saw with the opening shot,
Right.
which were CGI, where which in other words was computer generated. Otherwise, this is all just surrounded, and we recycled extras with a handheld camera.
How did you know you were ready to step behind the camera at that point in your career?
I was not.
Okay.
I thought, I need more control over my career. So I thought I'd branch out and start producing and developing my own material so that I didn't even think I wanted to direct, but I found this script that I fell in love with and worked with the writer for a few years to get it into shape, and ultimately felt like I couldn't give it to somebody else. I was afraid someone would screw it up. And I found myself directing a feature film with no idea what I was doing.
You ready for our next clip?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Tarzan.
Yes, okay, so here I am, a cartoon character. They obviously modeled that exactly on my physique.
And how did you land this gig?
I honestly, I auditioned for this. I was doing a play on Broadway with Laura Linney. Both of us, Laura and I, they were auditioning for this Disney movie, for the new Disney animated movie. I was like, that sounds like fun, and I went in and auditioned for it, and then they ended up giving me the role. And it took 3 years to make. 3 years, over a 3-year period, while they were animating, we would go back in every few months, and you'd record your dialogue, and they'd rewrite. It was a fascinating process. But I love this. It's a beautiful film. And my eldest daughter, who was maybe 7 at the time, she dropped to her knees and said, "Thank you, Daddy," when I told her I was doing it. She was so happy. So that one was for my kids.
That
and
was for your babies.
So I did go into many elementary school classrooms and do the Tarzan yell.
You did do the yell.
I did for the but I made them do it with me.
They did it
That
with
was the
you.
key, yeah.
Can you still do it?
I probably could, but I don't know.
Can you do it right now?
No, only if you did it with me.
Okay, yeah, let's
All
do
right,
it.
we can try it.
One,
Yeah?
2, 3.
Oh! Yep, still got it.
Welcome back to Couch Surfing. I'm still here with Tony Goldwyn. Tony, shall we continue?
Sure.
All right.
Yes, The Last Samurai.
Right.
Well, that was my death. Okay, there we go. Tom Cruise throws a samurai sword through my chest. Ed came up to me one day and he said, you know, we're kind of ahead and there's this one little sequence I thought maybe we could do. It's no big deal. We may not get to it, but would you be up for doing something on horseback? It won't be anything complicated. And Ed goes, okay. So here's what, and they had 500 Japanese extras who were the infantry soldiers that you sort of saw in those. And Ed goes,
scene.
yeah, he's like, so here's what I want you to do. He said, we're going to start up by where the cannons that you saw. You're going to start up there, and then you're going to go down and you're going to mount your horse, and you're going to call out these commands, and you guys are going to charge. And I was like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
It was incredibly complex. So I had a fake beard and
That's
mustache,
right.
like a goatee and a mustache. And these black clouds are rolling in on us. And
It's
I'm like, okay, we
ominous.
got to get this. We gotta
Yes.
get. Everyone's panicking. All of a sudden, I feel something on my face, and I feel my mustache is peeling off. And I yell down to one of the Japanese infantry guys, excuse me, and they didn't speak any English. And he's like, oh yes, and he starts bowing to me like. So we hear action, do the whole thing perfectly, cut. It starts to pour rain. And Ed's like, yes, that was fantastic. That's a wrap. We got it. It's great. And I'm like, there might be a problem.
Up next.
Up next.
And I want it, Liz.
Oh.
I want to win this election.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm going
she
for it.
is.
So after toiling for decades, you
Yes.
land in a Shonda Rhimes drama playing the president.
God, that was 7 years of just magic scandal. It really was.
How soon into filming did you know it was going to be something special?
We didn't know if it would work with an audience, but instantaneously we knew it was something special. So,
Boy, did it work.
yeah.
People are still invested in Fitz and Olivia.
I know, isn't it amazing?
It's so. What do you think happened to the two of them ultimately? Because the series
Oh,
finale.
well, I have my whole
left-
thing. I think Carrie probably has a totally different opinion.
Well, tell me
I
yours, and then we'll
feel-
get Carrie on the couch and we'll ask her.
Yeah,
but
I
you
feel
go
like,
first.
well, I guess I'm more sentimental than Carrie. I feel like Fitz and Olivia got together, that they figured it out, and she went to work for Mellie in the White House. They probably became the power couple that they were meant to be.
And sometime in Vermont.
I wonder if Olivia became president of the United States.
Oh, can't you just call Shonda up and make that happen?
No, because I don't want her to rain on my parade. And she's like, Tony, that's not what happened.
Up next.
Get ready.
Oh, Divergent. With Ansel
Divergent.
Elgort, who's become a big star. And
Sure.
Shailene Woodley, too.
Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, and the film went on to be a big success.
I heard that it may be coming to television. Do you know anything
Oh,
about
really?
that?
No, I don't.
You don't
But
know
that would
anything
be
about
good.
that.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Because Veronica Roth's novels, they're like YA adventure, fantasy novels, are incredibly popular and really fun.
I also see an action career in your future. Is that something that
You
you
do?
would ever entertain?
Action movies are fun. I've done a bunch of them now, but they're also really, really hard because they're quite tedious. You know what I
can
mean?
imagine.
Because
There's a lot
every
of-
bit of all that stuff just takes an incredibly long amount of time to shoot. So yeah, but Divergent was really fun.
All right. Up next.
Up next. Oh yes.
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now,
That's
which
what
is
you're doing right now.
spectacular.
The
The Inheritance, which is a two-part play about the AIDS, or sort of the legacy of the AIDS epidemic on Broadway. And it's an extraordinary, it's one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of, I have to say, yeah.
Why are you so passionate about it?
It's hard to describe. It is such a beautiful piece of writing. It's deeply moving. And it really is about 3 generations of gay men in New York City, focusing on a younger group of millennial men who really did not live through the AIDS epidemic, and 2 middle-aged men, me being one of them, who did and were traumatized by it. And I play a gay Republican billionaire. He's just a very rich character. You know, I love playing people who are have a lot of contradictions. And Henry Henry Wilcox is his name, is a very powerful man of great charm and intellect, and yet at the same time is crippled emotionally. What I wanted to do was immerse myself in film and literature about the epidemic, because I lived through it, but I'm a straight man. I cannot possibly know what it was like to be a part of that community at that time. And so I'm representing that. And so I wanted to, that's really what I tried to dial into, because I feel a big responsibility to, you know, the members of our audience who did live through it. Yeah.
We're done.
Are we? Okay. Well, that was fun. Thanks, Lola.
Thank you so much for surfing by. Come again anytime.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. And you can see Tony in The Inheritance on Broadway right now. See you next week on Couch Surfing. Bye.